Seems like a lot of the options for Giants quarterbacks, especially with Sam Darnold sucking the last 2 weeks, have maybe gotten less here over the last few weeks.
Unpopular opinion coming. I don't think Giant fans want to hear this today, but I have no problem with Sam Darnold going to the Giants next year. I really don't. I never thought that Sam Darnold, even at the apex of his play this year, was as good as some people were starting to, and I know O'Connell had great influence and he played very well. I just kind of viewed his performance with a little trepidation, certainly respect, and a little surprise. And I knew he was doing well and played very well, but I never looked at him as like he figured it out to the point where he's now a star. And I also don't think that he was as bad, or he'll be as bad moving forward as he was last night. So I think when you look at the quarterback market, you're right, Sal. I mean, the Aller stuff, the Shedeur Sanders stuff, we'll get to that later, the draft. What team? I look at this right now. What teams in the NFL are going to need quarterbacks next year? And I think it's a pretty basic list. We'll put the Giants there, clearly. You might have to put the Jets there if Rodgers retires or they get rid of him, whatever. I would say the Browns, the Raiders, the Colts, the Titans, the Saints, and maybe one or two others. Steelers, yes. So I would say of those 6 or 7 teams I just mentioned, probably 2 more emerge unexpectedly, like the coaching market. I think a few of those spots will be addressed by the draft, which means I don't think you'll have that many teams vying for Sam Darnold. So I ask you, he made $10 million this year, okay? If the Giants can get him for 22 to 25, which at this point is a fairly paltry figure for a quarterback, you don't want it? For the Giants.
Yeah, I want no part of Sam Darnold. We had this conversation, it's funny, BT, before week 1, going into the Giants-Vikings game, and I incorrectly liked the Giants because I am anti-Sam Darnold. No, but you were saying, Sam Darnold, you sleeping on him, Sal, you sleeping. And I'm like, Sam Darnold stinks. And he went on to have a terrific season to a point where I was watching him saying, man, he's throwing the ball with confidence. Okay, he makes some mistakes and throws some interceptions. Who doesn't? But Sam Darnold was throwing the football with confidence. The last 2 weeks solidified my initial take on Sam Darnold is that he's not very good. So while he may be better in O'Connell's system and looks like a quarterback who's developed and, could be a stopgap guy or a decent quarterback for some teams, I guess, I would want no part of Sam Darnold, not to mention in New York and the media pressure in this town that he's already dealt with, or that building and throwing the football, outside of the dome in a spot that's tough to throw it at MetLife Stadium once the wind gets going and all those different things. So me personally, I want no part of Sam Darnold.
See, the problem here for the Giants is there's no home run solution. So you've got to be creative, and I think you've got to understand that there's just got to be a runway to relevance and to meeting. I hate the term meaningful games, in November, December, but for Giant fans and for Jet fans, that's something that both teams have been chasing for a while outside of 2022 for the Giants, as we know. So I look at the potential options. I don't see any. I mean, from a Giants perspective, you want Russell Wilson? They talked to him a year ago. They decided not to go that route. You want Joe Flacco? You want Jameis Winston?
No.
Who do you want? What's the answer?
Well, I think they got to figure out a way to draft one myself. I want, and again, I said this a year ago, I want a franchise quarterback, not a stopgap guy. And if it is going to be a stopgap guy, I'd rather it be Justin Fields, let's say, with the potential to still be a franchise guy. Even though I don't love the way he throws the football, I still would rather have his upside and energy and excitement, the potential there versus Sam Darnold, especially here. I don't think it's like ridiculous what you're saying, because now with the way that Darnold has played the last 2 games, it's not Sam Darnold the $40 million a year quarterback. Now it's Sam Darnold the $20 million a year quarterback. So there's a different value there in Darnold. Like, could he be serviceable? Sure. I just wouldn't want him. I don't want that type of quarterback. I want I'd rather take a risk in the draft, even if it's a second round, whatever.
Well, you can still take a quarterback in round 2, because that's the thing about Sam. You know that Sam's going to work well with the quarterback.
Yeah, I don't want any part of Sam Darnold.
Not at all.
No, I'm not a fan. Never been a fan. I think he stunk here.
I always told you he was not as bad as you make it out to be with the Jets. Like that 1 year, he had like 17 and 13. Like, he was okay.
Okay. I mean, initially I liked him his first year, but he wasn't any good here. Didn't make it here. He's been all over the place. In his best year to date with the Vikings, nobody would dispute how good he was this year.
Yep.
He choked badly in the biggest games of the year.
Hey, listen, he got sacked 9 times. And the biggest...
Throw the ball!
Yeah,
He's holding on the damn ball, throw it!
That's where I was going. The biggest knock on Sam is that he's just kind of holding. Just release the ball. I agree. I don't know. Can you teach that at this age? You know, he's almost 30. That's probably trying to teach an old dog a new trick, which without a lot of success. But hey, if we're going to judge quarterbacks on a game, and I know with Sam, we've got to go back to the Lions game as well.
Yeah,
we have to, and we incorporate that. There's no doubt. But if that's the case, Herbert, I mean, they should be running. I know Herbert's body of work is better up to this point than Sam Darnold, clearly. But you throw 4 picks in a playoff game, some were just egregiously bad. Get him out of L.A.
Yeah,
I just think that we overreact positively and negatively, by the way. And I listen, if Sam Darnold threw for 290 against the Lions and 3 touchdowns, and last night he ran for 1 and he threw for 1 and he had a high completion percentage and they won the game, and even if they would have lost next week in the divisional round, and now Sam Darnold, the hype is around like, hey, maybe Sam could be a franchise I'm not having this conversation for the Giants. No way. Sam Darnold is not that kind of guy. But you need a guy. Like, you can't, and I know what you mean. You got to try to find the franchise quarterback. But as you're looking for one, can you at least have somebody serviceable?
Yeah, I don't think it's a ridiculous thought. I just don't want Sam Darnold here in this town. And by the way, you can make that same argument for the Jets because they're going to likely need a quarterback. So why not Sam Darnold, especially if it's at a value? And I'm sure other teams are going to think the same thing about Sam Darnold. But it's the combination of his failures when he first got drafted with the Jets and never really believing in him, and then watching his best year fall apart on the biggest stage, missing throws, specifically the Sunday night game, and then doubling down on that. He had a chance for a bounce back. He cost himself a lot of money these last 2 weeks. Those are big, big games. All he had to do was be okay. Even if they didn't win, just be okay. He was awful in those 2 games.
I'm not defending last night. Again, if the price tag was where it was going, then again, we're having a totally, I don't even think we're leading with this here outside of maybe referencing the game. We'll get these calls, 888-808-1019, BT and Sal. But the other thing too, I don't really know how you quantify this. It's just appealing to me. Not that it always works. It's not always a perfect measurement, but when you start in a manner that Sam started his career, when he was thrust into an awful, ill-prepared franchise with no O-line, no weapons, no coach, and he comes out of it stronger on the other side after going to multiple franchises and sitting and watching, and he wins 14 games. I'm interested in that guy for 20-something million bucks. I'll take him.
Understood, but are we...
And I would take him for the Jets. I just don't think he wants to go back.
Understood that too, or I understand that too, but are we sure that Darnold came out of it and, he did to a certain extent, but the last 2 weeks showed me that those ghosts are still in there. You know, he's seeing the ghost, and then with the pressure on against the good defenses, holding on to the damn football way too long, missing easy throws to Justin Jefferson Sunday Night Football against the Lions. There were things even in the last 2 weeks, even after he quote-unquote found himself and, had this resurgence and all these different things, there were still things that you could see in the last 2 weeks specifically with everything on the line where he reverted back to the old Sam Darnold. BT and Sal on the Fan, our friends at Town Fair Tire. Remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Ray is in Edison, New Jersey. What's up, Ray?
Good morning, gentlemen. It is an honor talking to you. Finally got through. Thank you so much.
Nice, Ray.
I enjoy your commentary and every conversation you have very much. I'm a huge Giant fan. Put it this way, I had dogs named Taylor and Tiki. So I did, yes, we did as a family. But Sam Darnold, I watched him in college football. I love the guy.
Yep.
Yes, he had a rough year with the Jets. I was watching the game last night, and I'm like, you know what? He's having a bad game. I would love to see him in a Giant uniform and see what happens. And then I wake up and I listen to you guys. I'm like, wow, I'm not the only one thinking this. I'm like, I would love to see him in a Giant uniform. He would do it. That's all I have to say. I love you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Ray.
He'd be great in a Giant uniform, I feel. 14 wins, I will take that.
Yeah,
well, you're not getting 14 next year.
You're lucky if you get 4.
You bring back Phil and Eli combined, you're not getting 14 with this roster. But I got you, Ray. Thanks for the call, buddy.
And thank you for the kind words. Look, I don't think it's out. When you first said it to me this morning, I was like, what? You want Sam now for the Giants? But after thinking about it, I don't think it's as outlandish as it may seem. I just have a thing.
I don't even think it seems outlandish because I haven't heard a better option. That's the thing.
Well,
if there were 3 or 4 better options, and I'm sitting here saying, stumping for Darnold, I'd say, what are you smoking today? It seems a little outlandish. What's the better option? I just gave you 5. You want Jameis Winston who throws 30 picks a year? What are we doing?
Of those crappy options, I'd rather have Justin Fields would be my crappy option. But that's why I want them to draft a quarterback. They draft a quarterback with the number 2 pick or number 3 pick, and I do think it's ultimately going to be Shedeur. We could get into that a little bit later on, but I've just felt like that before the Drew Aller stuff, before Dion was rumored to go to the Cowboys, I felt like it was going to be Shedeur. I still feel like it's going to be Shedeur. And in that scenario, I would not be paying anybody $20 million to come in. Maybe you sign Drew Lock back or whatever and have him start the first 5-6 games before handing it over to Shedeur Sanders. But Sam Darnold is not a franchise quarterback, and I am not going down that road. And if it has to be a quote-unquote stopgap or somebody with potential, I'd rather go Justin Fields.
Listen, by the way, I've said Fields maybe for the Jets and the Giants.
Right.
I don't love him. That's the point. There's nobody to love. There's not a situation to love. I mean, I don't know in terms of just that consensus, not that it always is right, but not everybody loves Cam Ward. Not everybody loves Shedeur Sanders. Not everybody loves the names we wrote. Nobody loves everybody.
Right.
So I look at somebody that's, I just think that Sam, I think he's mentally tough. I think he's physically, he's pretty good size, pretty good stature, good enough arm, and a good enough player, I think, to at least, will you into a competitive season. Not that Justin Fields can't do that. Right. I'm not saying that. Now, maybe the benefit because Justin didn't play a whole lot this year because Russell Wilson took over, as we know, maybe Justin Fields' price tag is lower than Sam. Right. And maybe that's a little appealing. But, I mean, any way you cut it, the Giants are going to have to be creative. And I understand the last look we get at someone or something generally is seared in our mind. I'm going to try to forget that because I want Sam Darnold for 4.5 months play really good football.
Now, you say he's mentally tough, Darnold.
Yes.
See, that's why I don't want him is because I think he's mentally weak.
Why?
Because of everything that went on in New York, seeing the ghosts.
The fact that he won 14 games this year after what happened in New York tells you that he is mentally tough.
Right. And then the biggest game of the year in Detroit, he soiled himself. And then, again, when he had a chance to recover from that, he looked even worse against the Rams, holding on to the football, being gun-shy, not throwing it. So to me, that shows that he's mentally weak and can't handle the pressure. Now, I'm not trying to pick on him, like, as a person. You're right. Like, he bounced back, went through adversity, salvaged his career. But with the money on the line, literally in his case,
yeah.
And in the biggest games of the year for his team against the Lions, against the Rams in the postseason, he was awful.
I'm not defending that. No, he played terribly. But you see, there's also a lot of games that I understand. Week 18, game 17, yep. Big stage, Sunday, everybody watching for the division, and he just did not play well. Understood. I think Aaron Glenn took him to school, and I said that the next day. Right. One of the reasons why I love Glenn for the Jets. We'll get to that later. But I also think it's unfair to him or to the situation, the conversation, to omit all the games that he played well to get them in a position to even have a chance to win. They won 14. They didn't listen. If they won the division, they were 9-8 or even 10-7, and he had really this guy threw 5 touchdowns, 4-3. Mike Sam Darnold had a really good season.
Mike is in Ramtown. What's up, Mike?
Mikey.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Good.
So first of all, just based off the last comment, Kevin O'Connell is what made Sam Darnold decent this year.
Yeah, I don't know that I would push back on that, but I also think, and I'll let you finish your next point, Mike, I think when we give coaches credit, which I think we should, I also think it's fair to say, well, player X could take what he learned from Coach Y and apply it in a different situation. You could learn something.
And then go to situation Z, but not back in New York. That would not work. That would not work.
Well, we don't know that, but I got you. I understand the reluctance to bring him back here.
One other question. Now, if the Giants don't get one of those first 2 quarterbacks, which I'm not a big fan of either, do you see them going in the second or the third round, maybe for like a Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe?
And the Milroe. These are names, who knows? I'm not saying that they wouldn't. And thanks for the call there, Mike. I mean, Sal, I don't want to say that that's small potatoes because a lot of teams find their franchise quarterback in those mid-rounds, or Brady late rounds, Montana mid-rounds, Russell Wilson, Seattle mid-rounds. I get it. Lamar Jackson barely made the first round. But I don't want to even say that that's the minutia, but that's not the story for me today. Sure, they could do that, 100%. But they got to start the season with a functional quarterback. You can't, and I love Tyrod Iverson. You can't start the year with somebody like a Tyrod Taylor.
Only if you have a top quarterback that is going to get the keys handed to him in week 6, whatever it may be.
Like with Kurt and Eli back in the day, something
exactly.
like that.
Like if you know you have the young franchise quarterback that you drafted and you're going to just let him sit for half the season and then turn it over to him, then you could live with whoever the starting quarterback is. That's why I said Drew Lock before Tyrod, whatever you want to say. One of those guys that you're paying nothing basically to be the starting quarterback for the first portion of the season. The Giants are in such a difficult spot because as a franchise with all the mistakes that they've made and doubling and tripling and quadrupling, what's 6? 6 toppling?
I'm not sure.
Toppling? I don't know, whatever. But with Daniel Jones going all in on him, they've put themselves now in a spot where, and the owner said it, they need a quarterback. Right or wrong, they are going to be forced into one way or another finding a franchise quarterback this offseason via trade, via free agency, or via the draft. So to me, it's imperative that they get that guy. I just don't think Sam Darnold is that guy. Maybe he'd be better in, let's say, Pittsburgh, who might not be looking for that quarterback right now.
Could be.
I mean, or whatever other of those teams that you mentioned that need one. I don't think the Giants and Darnold are a good fit. Matter of fact, I think he's similar to Daniel Jones. I think Sam Darnold is similar. I mean, he throws the ball a little bit better, but Daniel Jones runs the ball better. Daniel Jones has won a road playoff game before. I don't really, and I think they're both mentally weak. So I don't see much of a difference between the two.
Hey, I understand the reluctance. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I mean, any pushback for Sam Darnold, especially to come back to this city where he was almost swallowed up, I obviously get it on every single level. I think at this point for me, I'm calculating risk, okay? And you can't be risk averse completely because eventually the Giants got to take a swing for a quarterback who's going to be here, 10, 12 years and do something. I mean, you can't just keep flushing these seasons down the chute where you win 5 games and it's a waste of everybody's time. However, when I calculate the risk here, for me, in my mind, I'm like, all right, what's a riskier proposition? Rolling the dice on Sanders, who myself, I really don't believe in. I don't. I don't believe in Shador Sanders. For me, no. I like Cam Ward more. I don't love him. So the risk there, top 3, you might even move up. Taking a quarterback top 3 and big money as a first contract quarterback, or give it a guy $22 million a year who just won 14 games, who's not great, but not terrible.
And then not draft
and then try to find somebody. Round 3.
Right.
Kick it down the tubes unconventionally and find one unconventionally. I don't think, the problem for the Giants is there's no perfect recipe here. There's nothing that says, all right, hey, they've got the first pick, and this guy's thought to be an all-time transcendent talent, no-brainer, put the name on the placard, Giants are good for 10 years. There's none of that coming at them this year.
Ultimately, though, there are going to be options, and they have to figure out which one. Like Shane and Dable, this is going to determine their fate. Maybe as soon as next season, but they have to figure it out, get the franchise quarterback, and win games next year. They put themselves.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Giants are not in a good spot. We'll continue the conversation when we come back with your calls, 888-808-1019, BT and Sal on the Fan.